Wow, it's time for another show full of tips and ideas from the sales growth leadership expert, Dean Akers. Known for his experience in hyper-growing companies and creating cultures for high-performance teams, here's Dean.
Well, welcome to your Sales and Leadership Ninja Show. I'm your head ninja, Dean Akers, and every week I bring you a rant to stimulate your thinking in either sales and or leadership. Today's show, how to never have an employee hiring problem. So with all this stuff going and you hear all the noise about small businesses can't hire people can't, I've actually run into some of my friends and stuff and thinking, man, I can't find anybody. It's tough right now. And I'm reminded back in growing all my businesses, I've never, ever had a hiring problem. So I meet people every day, owners of businesses, that tell me how it's so hard to find people. So today's show, I'm going to share with you what's worked for every company that I've owned or been CEO of. And it all starts with survey results of what motivate employees. Now, in my case, having done thousands and thousands of these surveys, I can clearly look and know I don't even need to survey a team, although I still survey every team I go into. And even when I survey every team as recently as a year ago, it still comes back with the data that always supports what I've found for the last 30 plus years. So it starts with this survey I created back early in my 30s with one of my companies. And it's an organizational climate questionnaire, and it's 10 dimensions that will show you your team or your organization's climate. And what it means is it rates the dimension of these 10 questions between where they think you are and where they want you to be, 1 to 10, with 10 being you're spot on where they think you are, and anything below it is where they want you to be. Now I'll have business people go, well, everybody's going to want it to be all 10s. And I got to be honest with you, in my career, I've never had all 10s. Never. So the results, people have really very fair with this. What people don't understand when they're filling it out, your team members, that what you're looking for is not the 1 to 10. It's the delta between where they see you and where they want the company to be or what they think's important. So it's really, really important that you understand that. So these deltas show you the biggest opportunities. And again, the operative word is this always has worked for me, always. I've done thousands of them, literally thousands and thousands. So these results will give you a clear path of where to work on improving your organization, which will equal profitability, I promise you. When you work with this, you won't have a pricing, profitability, sales, or any problem. It'll increase employee or team satisfaction. And more importantly, which is what everybody's telling me today, it's hard to find good people. You'll really be able to find great people anytime you need them when you want to grow. And this has always worked for me. And people go, well, how does that work? Because my best recruiters, and by the way, I've never needed a recruiter. I've never run an ad. I've never been short-staffed in 20 years. And many of my positions with many of my companies, for those listeners that have listened to me in the past, you know I was in the construction business, the tire business. So many of my members of my teams were entry level. So the operative word here is it's never mattered. I've never used recruiters or anybody. And my biggest recruiters become my current staff. They become my current staff. And so, by the way, anybody that's listening in today that would like to see the survey and an example of results, all you have to do is email me at dean@deanakers.com. That's dean@deanakers.com. And put survey in the subject line. I get so many emails from people for different things. Just put survey in the survey line, and I'll send you the PDF examples of both. Totally works. So how do the results work? So here's an overview of the results I've seen for 30 years plus. The number one biggest issue is a feeling of appreciation. When I've surveyed my teams, it's always universally a feeling of appreciation. Now, I'm not saying some companies that I've gone into that's always number one, but I will say this, it is always in the top three. And what I'm sharing with you will vacillate very little with most companies, but the number one is a feeling of appreciation if I was to take all the companies over the years. Number two, and very important, is being in the know and feeling listened to. Being in the know and feeling listened to. Money compensation has consistently always been below the top 5 out of 10. It's never in the top 5 out of 10. So this has worked so well for me when I'm hyper-growing company and I need new people or I need people, because my team members become my biggest recruiters and they don't even know it. And by the way, when your team members are recruiting for you, you're getting the highest quality people because they're very careful who they recommend by virtue of their own pride and feeling of value to the team. And the surveys will show that. So here are a couple questions that I always ask my leaders. Remember, number one is a feeling of appreciation. Number two is feeling in the know or listened to. So here are a couple questions I always ask my leaders. Do you know your team spouses? Boy, do you think I get blank stares there? Have you engaged their families? And somebody goes, oh, well, that's easy if you have a couple employees. I've had 1,000 employees. And I got to tell you, it's not as difficult as you think. And when you look at the profitability and stuff by having these people engaged, it's well worth your effort. Do you send handwritten touches like birthdays, special events, child's graduations, just different touches? And I always get blank stares. And I'll give you an example. I had a guy quit one of our companies, one of our management folks, and my vice president called me up and said, so-and-so quit. He got more money from the competition. I go, okay, we'll tell him we love him. He's always welcome back. That night, this is years ago, that night my phone rang. It was his wife. His wife called and said, so-and-so my husband came home and told me that he quit today because he got a better job offer from somebody financially. And I'm calling you tonight as his wife just to ask if it's okay if he can keep his job. And I go, of course, we love him. He's always, we love him. And she goes, well, he's never worked for any company like this, and we as a family don't need the more money that bad. Can he keep his job? And I go, absolutely. So he stays. That's not the story. Because I'm asking if you've done touches to your teams. Do you send them a birthday note to their house? Do you know, again, their wife's names? Do you do unique touches like their kids' birthdays, or if their child graduates, or holidays, 4th of July, to their houses, so their family gets engaged? So here she's called me 6-8 months later. I was with him, and he goes, do you have time to come by my house? Because I was staying where he was, as we were a statewide company, and I was up in Orlando where he was. And I go, sure. So I go by his house after work, and his wife and kids are there, and I walk in, and she gives me a hug, and she goes, oh, go sit down in the living room. I'll bring you a beer or whatever. And so I go sit in the living room. You cannot make this up. This is so spot on. It just hit me right between the eyes. I go sit in their living room. One of my handwritten notes acknowledging something great he had done or done well with our company and sent to his house with a stamp on it was in a frame on his coffee table. Something that you as a CEO or boss or leader of your company go, oh, it doesn't matter. It became a trophy for her, for his family, because of how I sent it and how important it was and what I said. I got to believe that played a big role in his wife calling me after he resigned to ask if he could keep his job, that money didn't matter. So I really encourage you, are you connecting with the families? And again, I don't care if you have thousands of people. There's nothing that could stop you. There's nothing more important, especially when I hear people talk about finding good people, spending 20% of salary for recruiters, all this nonsense, turnover, all this other stuff. And then when I ask them about questions about their team and the depth and what they know about their team, and have you done these touches with your team, and the answer is no, I go, shut up. Shut up. You're the problem. You're the problem. So these things are very, very compelling. And by the way, I've had other examples. I'll give you another example. I had one of my biggest competitors try to take one of my key people one time. And he called me up. He said, "Can I come see you?" And I said, "Yeah." So I figured, I didn't know what it was. He came in and he goes, "So-and-so just offered me way more money to go with his company and this other perk and this and this and this." And I go, "Wow." And I go, "What'd you tell him?" I told him, "I don't need more money. And I'm not going to leave this company." And I looked at him, I go, "Wow." And he goes, "Yeah, the way you treat us," and not being you, the way the company treats us, the personal touches and everything, this is the best company I've ever worked for. And oh, by the way, this same company that I had, we were growing. We actually were the fastest growing company in the state of Florida in 96 or whatever it was. We never ever had to recruit. Our lobby was full every day of people wanting to come to work because of our team telling them the stories and bragging about our company and how we listened and connected and cared about them. Number two biggest thing in the survey is being in on the know and being listened to. How often do you really ask their ideas and really listen? So one of my partners in a company I went into years ago, when I was first coming in and we were just starting out and I ended up growing this company, we had a big exit. They could never grow. And so I would listen and people would come in and go, "What do you think about this?" And they go, "Well, it looks good, but I'd change this a little bit." And I sat there and I go, "Wow, you just did two things. You killed their idea, and now you put your idea, so now they become a cripple. So you'll never grow. You'll never grow because they'll never get out of their comfort zone because they're always going to be running stuff by you. You're always going to tweak it. And as you tweak it, you become the owner of it, and consequently you never grow." And oh, by the way, they had never grown. And so when we started changing this and saying, just listen, if it's not a deal killer, so somebody comes with an idea or you ask them a question and they say, "I think we ought to do X." If it's not a deal killer, take their idea and run with it. Do not offer any advice. Go, "Wow, thank you." Don't go, "Well, I'd change this. I'd do this a little different." Do not be the smartest person in the room unless you want to continually be the only guy in the room. If you want to be a small company, if you want to have high turnover, or you want people where you can't find people, don't be the smartest person in the room. Know that number two is they want to be in the know and feel listened to. And to feel listened to is when you hear them is to really engage. And what happens is when you really start doing this, it really starts exploding your company because now people are comfortable with taking risk and they start really feeling empowered. They feel the being in on things is a big deal, and you're giving them all the touches so they feel the feeling of appreciation. Can you picture the energy just when you get to 1 and 2? By the way, money is always again in the bottom 5. Below, it's back down number 7 or 8. I got to tell you, today, number 1, feeling of appreciation. Number 2, being in the know and listened to. I got to tell you, these things really work. So, your assignment is to really take this today. And again, I'm doing this as a rant again, like I always do, because I had a week where people were talking about and can't find good employees, or talking about the reason they don't have good employees is because they're getting money from the government. None of that is the reason. Especially when I sit with the various people that were bitching about it, and I ask them the questions about, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about that. And they all look at me like, what? I don't do any of that. And I go, exactly. And you will always have that challenge. Again, thanks for letting me be part of your journey. I love all my listeners, and I always hope that this idea I share will help at least one of you each week. And again, thanks always for tuning in and making my podcast top 50 on Apple iTunes. Thanks for everything. And again, if you need a copy of my book, Self-Talk, Think Like a Child, it's on Amazon. And if you ever have a question or you want a copy of the survey, just reach out at dean@deanakers.com, put survey in the subject line, and I'll always be glad to help, and I'm here for you. Be genuine with engagement with your team and understand why people are really your biggest asset, and you'll never have an employee hiring problem again. Have a great week.
We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Subscribe today to our podcast and send questions or thoughts to help@deanakers.com. Also, visit us at www.deanakers.com to listen to prior shows and view helpful videos. Also, great tips to download. Thanks again. See you next week.